Okay, actually, my first name is Kazuo, Kazuo, on my birth certificate, and Wesley is my middle name, and Mukoyama is my family name. And I was born on October 26th, 1942, in the Jane Addams Housing Project, the first housing project in the United States, in Chicago, Illinois. I have two older brothers who were in Japan during the war. The term kibei, they're kibeis, and they were there during I was an accident because my two older brothers were sent to Japan in 1940. My brother Howard he was only less than a year old when he went there, and my aunt took him, and my brother Marshall, who was 3 years old, and they went to Japan so they could, because there was so much discrimination against Japanese, they felt that perhaps they could be raised in Japan and get a Japanese education. And my mother was going to the University of Chicago for a master's degree in social service administration, and she wanted to get her Ph.D., and she was one of the maybe handful of nisei that went to graduate school during that time. So in 1940, they were sent to Japan with my aunt, who took them there while my mother was still going to school. And then the war broke out. And so they were trapped in Japan. They couldn't come back, and they were staying with my father's sister, and he was one of 6 children. So, and then I was born accidentally in 1942, October, about 10 months after Pearl Harbor. And we didn't go to camp because we were in Chicago. They only took the West Coast Japanese. But my father owned a gift shop, and it's called the Oriental Gift Shop, which is still a company. It's called the Oriental Trading Company now. It was based in Omaha, and there are about 6 or 8 gift shops in the Midwest. My father owned one, and my uncle owned one, and there were 2 others in Chicago, and there were several spread out through Iowa, in Des Moines, Toledo, and Ohio, different places. So they were doing very well before the war, but after the war broke out, we had a lot of problems. And then the day Pearl Harbor was attacked, my mother was coming out of the store, and my father went around the back to get the car to pick her up in front, and somebody threw a steel ball bearing and missed her head by an inch. Now, she says that it made a perfect hole in the glass door, but I don't, that's what she said. But anyways, it was very close to her, and then, and they yelled out Jap, and she was really traumatized by that. And, the racism continued, and it made my father's store very difficult to run. And then I was born, and as I grew up, I felt the discrimination. There was one point when I was growing up. I was about 4 years old, and in our neighborhood we had groups of people, boys playing, and a group from another neighborhood came to our neighborhood, and they wanted to fight because they heard that I was a Jap, and so they asked one of my guys, "What are you doing with a Jap here in this? What are you playing with a Jap for?" And then one of the guys stood up for me. His name was Eugene Coakley, and he said, "Leave him alone. He can't help it. He was born that way." So I remember that vividly because I felt like a freak, and so it just stuck with me for the longest time, and we were always called names, but they would stop calling us Jap because we would always fight for it.